Game of Thrones? More like Throne of Bones. Watch as your mind gets blown by this throne made by skeletal drones, designed by a lone, evil crone who invades your stone homes. Now dust off your tomes as I show you how to make your own Throne of Skulls. Son of a gun, that was supposed to be Throne of Bones. I messed that line up, son of a... Like the intro showed, we're making a Throne of Skulls for the big bad evil guy near you. Except I really want mine to be inch by inch so that I can fit a standard miniature on the throne, so that it kind of builds to that immersion with all of the minis that you're making. So first thing I do is I cut an inch by inch block of XPS foam with my hot wire foam cutter, and then I find another set that is just some scrap foam that I have to make the arms of the throne. Everything that we do here, you can do with a knife at home on the XPS foam, exactly the same. I just have a Proxxon cutter, so I'd rather use it to make it go quicker. So I decide to kind of keep using my mini to get the scale right that I want. I want it to just barely fit over where his head would be. And once I get the dimensions right, I want to texture it with a just crumpled up piece of aluminum foil, and you get that kind of nice stone texture. As soon as we're done with that, do like we normally do with XPS foam, and we're gonna hot glue that son of a gun right on there and glue each little piece until it fits perfectly, and it will be extremely sturdy. You don't got to worry about that falling off anytime soon. After that, we move on to the Black Magic Craft style Mod Podge black paint mixture for stability and sturdiness and rigidness of this piece so that it can take a few beatings before any of the foam decides it wants to come off. As well, black is a nice base coat. It's a lot nicer to see than pink is under your stonework. So if you miss paint somewhere or it kind of starts to chip off, generally black is what you're going to see over pink, which is what we want, right? It's just better all around. So next thing we do is we take some dark gray paint. This is a 50-cent bottle from Walmart, and it's really good for terrain, and we want to cover the whole thing. I said the black is the base coat. This is kind of base coat number 2, but we're only going to do one layer because if a little bit of black shows through, that's good. We want it to be a little darker. Next thing we do is take a wash. I'm using a homemade black wash, and you can check out how to do that in my Castle Tower video that I've made before. All in all, this is pretty easy to do. It's just black paint, water, a little bit of dish soap, a little bit of green paint, a little bit of brown paint, and a little bit more black paint after you mess up your ratios. Next thing we do is take a much lighter gray, and we're going to dry brush that on. And for those of you who don't know, dry brushing is just filling your brush with paint, getting most of it off of there, leaving mostly just pigment behind, and then going all over the piece with quick strokes so that it catches all of the highlights. And now, this already immediately starts to look like a stone throne. But what really makes it look like a stone throne is if you take a little bit of a tan white rather than just gray and go over that with a dry brush as well, because earth tones have their place and not just grays when you're doing stonework. Next thing I do is I do a second wash on there, and I decided to use Citadel Nuln oil because it's just a higher quality wash than whatever I can make, and I do a much lighter wash this time. I want this thing to look dark and dingy like it's in a dungeon. And what makes a Throne of Skulls better than these skulls? Nobody cares on the stonework. They want to see the skulls in the Throne of Skulls, right? So we're going to paint a bunch of them. We're going to make some bigger ones, and we're going to make some extremely teeny tiny ones, and I'm going to show you some tips on how to make that a little bit easier, because holding them by hand is not fun. But first, we need those skulls, and I use Citadel Skulls because you can get a ton of them. One box of this will last you so long with all the skulls that are on it. It has a bunch of the really small ones that are about miniature head size. So they come in little plates like this, and you just cut them off with little shears. I have little hobby ones, and I cut off a bunch of regular human-esque skulls, humanoid ones, and then some demonic ones because I figured I'd use those too. But the tip to making painting small things a lot easier is poster tack. Poster tack and something to hold it on. I use a wine cork. I got a bunch of these, and you just put some poster tack on there, and it will hold all of your extremely small pieces in place, so you don't have to hold them by hand. One, so you don't get paint all over yourself, and two, it really, holding your hand that tight really starts to cramp it up after a while, which sounds nerdy. You're cramping your hand holding some small things while you're painting it, but it does. I swear it does. So you can put a bunch of these on this poster tack at a time because we're going to do some mass painting here, right? You can see the kind of demonic skulls I've chose to use, some almost ape-like skulls, and some humanoid ones. We're going to paint this an extremely easy way. We're doing 2 paints on it. One, which is a base coat of Xandri dust. You can just use any kind of more tan than white color for the bone, and we're going to go all over these. We're going to do 2 coats on each side. So we're going to paint the front side, which is the one not stuck to the poster tack right now. Completely coat that and do that for every single piece that you have. It's going to take just a little bit, but they're small. You can go through it quicker. I did a small brush. I probably should have just used a larger one and went totally ham and painted everything. But I wanted to make sure I got into all the nooks and crannies of all the skulls and I didn't miss anything, and you could see gray later on, right? After you're done painting all of the individual skulls like this, like I said, you want to do 2 layers, one for painting its sake and one for making sure it doesn't come off later, because after you paint the first set, you have to flip them around, and when you flip them around, there's going to be more gray there. That's fine. Just go ahead and push the side you've already painted 2 layers on down onto the poster tack. It doesn't stick that hard. It's not going to peel the paint off. And go ahead and begin painting the back side as well, because we are going to place these skulls in any which way position and we don't want anything to not show. I told you this was going to be an easy paint job, and I didn't lie to you. Next, we just take some Reichland Flesh Shade and paint that right over the skulls. That's enough to get you a really old bone looking one. Bones aren't as white as, you know, as some of the skeleton cartoons make them out to be. They're dingy, they're old, they've got crap on them, especially ones that have been sitting in a dungeon for a long time. So if you just do the Xandri dust combined with Reichland Flesh Shade, you get a pretty darn good looking skull, and you can highlight it more if you want, but I'm just going to move on to what I call the Lego phase, the assembly of all of these skulls onto a throne. We're doing that same way we pretty much always do, with some hot glue and placing the skulls down in areas we think need some skulls. This one, however, you need to be a little bit more careful because we're using a lot of really, really tiny skulls, and 1, you could burn your hand, but 2, we don't want any of the excess hot glue showing. I took 2 demonic skulls that were very similar, and I wanted to place them on the sides of the throne so that it looked like they were symmetrical and placed there to be almost ritualistic, right, and have some standout from the other skulls. So I did 1 on one side, 1 on the other, again with just hot glue, and then I took 1 Big Daddy skull that I wanted right in the middle, one with huge long horns that stands out, that even if your miniature's sitting there, you can pretty much see that skull. And from there, I decide, you know, I'm just gonna glue the rest of the skulls around until I find something that suits what I think looks good. I try and make a lot of piles of skulls on the sides and the fronts where they may have just fallen off, and then some skulls where the big bad evil guy's hand goes. And with that, we are done. Look at our skull throne. I think it's really nice. I like putting my miniatures on it, and I really like the detail that the skulls give to it, because you could just have a stone throne, and you may want that if you want just a kind of stone area for maybe a dwarf bad guy or a dwarf good guy to sit. I decided not to put anything on the back because I wanted those to be able to go up against a wall if I felt like it, but the skulls are nice. It really sells the idea that whoever sits here is sure to rule the Underdark with an iron fist. So, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you like this, maybe check out some of my other build videos. I've got quite a few of them now, and consider subscribing. It helps me out because I like to see those numbers go up, and it makes me know that people want to see these and they want to see these builds. So if you guys come, I will keep making more of them. But I really appreciate you guys watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.